Okay everyone, welcome back to the channel for another video on Gran Turismo 7. We're back with the highlights from the last two rounds of the Manufacturers Championship on GT7. So this is test season 1 and we're going into our first race here in qualifying in what is probably the most stacked lobby I've had on GT7 so far. You can see TRL Lightning, we've got Williams B Racer, we've got Agu in here, we've got a lot of very fast drivers. So it's quite a high rated lobby. I think it was over 400 points, and I did this off stream. I did this before the F1 was starting, so jumped on, did a race, then watched the F1, and then we streamed the second race. So yeah, I thought I'd show you this as Lightning going for his usual turn 1 there at Suzuka, making a little mistake there. I think he hates that corner, but yeah, luckily he had the common sense to back out just before the car got in my way there, so he could have unghosted right in front of us. So he got out of it, backed out, and restarted his lap from the pits, I think, so went back out for another run. So yeah, big F in the chat for Lightning there, but we go over the line on our first lap here. I don't think it's particularly great. I think it's like a 2 minutes 0.4. Now, again, we hadn't warmed up. We had literally done a few laps on time trial, jumped on, and hoped for the best. Now, the final run, we managed to slightly improve our lap. I think we went down to a 202 or 203, a 200.2 or something like that. Let's have a little look as we go over the line. Yeah, a 200.3, so not particularly great lap. We improved on that in our, I think, on our next run in this race. But yeah, for this one, it starts us down in P11 or 12 or something like that. Now, there was a problem with this lobby. It got stuck on the black screen, and we were in here for about 6 minutes just waiting. We thought the lobby had died. We were all just there, and then suddenly, I think it managed to find the actual server somehow. Something happened and we all got in, and you can see a lot of people quite surprised. But yeah, we managed to get in the lobby, and actually not a single driver got disconnected, which is really weird. So yeah, luckily we were able to race this race, and I could get on with racing some of the fastest drivers in the world on GT7. You can see we got Maxime in here as well. We got Quentin in there in P1. Absolutely stacked lobby. I think it's one of the most competitive lobbies I've been in so far on GT7. But this is why we want to stay in top split, so we can be racing with these people, because these are the fastest drivers on Gran Turismo, and these are the people that I think most people want to watch us racing against. So P1 Quentin there. We've got Williams B Racer, V Gallo. I don't know why on the replays it uses people's nicknames rather than the in-game names when I had it on the actual proper in-game names. It's a bit weird, but maybe it was because I needed to change a setting somewhere. We've got Mick Howard there, otherwise known as Lightning in-game, driving the Subaru and doing a really good job with that Subaru. Quite interesting that the pace he had as well was pretty close to the RCZ, not that far off in the Subaru. So it does show you that there are cars that maybe if you've got the ability you can push close to the RCZ and stuff like that. But still, I do think the RCZ, for a general rule, is very OP at the majority of tracks for most people. I think that if, for example, if I think I'd be half a second quicker in the RCZ at most combinations. So yeah, the McLaren though isn't a bad car. We're running the new livery by Azubair, absolutely brilliant livery, you can see there on our car, and we're about to start this race right behind the Z4 in front of us. Now the Z4, so much better on GT7 than it used to be on GT Sport. It's got a good straight line speed. It's not the fastest through the corners, but it's got really good straight line speed to make up for that. So yeah, a pretty nice car overall, I think, for race pace compared to what it was like on GT Sport. You can actually compete with that car, and it also sounds very good on this game. So following behind P11 here, we get very close straight away, and you can see through the corners, the McLaren definitely has a handling advantage over the Z4. And as we come through here, you can see trying to get a wider line to try and get better exit speed, because I felt like we might have good pace here. So as we come through here though, we just get on the power, and you can see we take a normal line through here, and then the car just, in that dirty air, just starts to slide. It's like when you've got that loss of aero, the car just gives up on traction on the rear when you're putting throttle down with a bit of steering input. But luckily managed to save it and didn't lose a massive amount of time. We lost like maybe half a second or something like that, so not a huge loss, but it has dropped us nearly outside the slipstream range here. So we're settling down and just trying to get the car, keep it smooth now. But that little scare did kind of slow me down a little bit, because like I say, we hadn't done any practice. We jumped in, done a few time trial laps, and I wanted to get settled down. So you can see them starting to pull away a little bit through their P11, and we're under pressure from P13 there behind us. I don't think he's going to go for a move here. You can see he's not really going to go for a move. He's going to actually back out there and there would have been no point going side by side there at that point, I think. So yeah, into the braking zone, and again he's going to have a little look down left hand side. We're going to give him the space on the left, but we've got the inside now, and just try and get a good exit from the chicane. So he's going to go and try and out drag the McLaren down the straight. Let's see what the McLaren can do in terms of straight line speed. So we're going to go to the right hand side of the track. You're going to see he's gone to the left, and he's going to try and out drag us on the left hand side of the track. But luckily for us, the McLaren isn't the slowest car in a straight line. It's not the fastest, but it's not the slowest. And we managed to hold on to that and keep the inside line and keep this position. And now we've got the handling section to try and hold on to this position. So we can try and push through here and try and get a rhythm going, which we do. We drove reasonably well through here. And now we're going to try and see if we can catch up to the cars in front, which is going to be quite hard, if I'm honest, because this is a very high ranked top split lobby. As we come through here, we've got Lopez going off there. I don't think that's Coque, that's a different Lopez, off into the barrier there in the Alpha, and that's one extra position gained. And then as we drive to the top of the hill, we're going to come through Spoon, and we've got another yellow flag. Now, I didn't see who that was, but I believe it was possibly Nick that's had an incident, because I'm not sure, or someone had an incident at the front there. But then as we come through the left-hand corner, we've got someone into the barrier. That is Aura into the barrier. And yeah, he has wrecked his race, I think, there. So he's not going to recover from that. And we're up to P10. So 2 positions gained just by keeping the car on the track. And now we've got quite a big gap to the drivers in front. So we're going to try and break that slipstream just to try and avoid the possibility of him going for an overtake into turn 1. And yeah, we're doing okay. We're driving all right on this safe. Considering we had done no warm-up, we just jumped in and was hoping for the best. And we're going to skip ahead to lap 4. You can see it's gone quite dark now on this race. And yeah, I'm not sure if it's darker than what it was on the other ones, because we were in that lobby waiting for so long, but it felt darker than the other races I did. We'll have to compare that when we get to the end of the next one. But yeah, I don't know if it's just my imagination. But yeah, as we come through into the final chicane, trying to keep it nice and smooth, we're going to go over the line for a P10 finish. And overall, not a bad result. A very high rank lobby. We finished 10th out of 20 cars, and pretty happy with that. We got Mick Alizal as well. We have to state this, in the Subaru, managed to get himself up, I think, a few positions because of people making mistakes, and also didn't really lose a massive amount of time to the RCZ, which shows you, I know it's only 4 laps, but the Subaru in race pace isn't terrible, but overall it's still not quite as good as the RCZ. So we decided to go again, and this time we managed to qualify P3. Now we had to take the footage from the replay footage, which means we haven't got any delta on the left. However, everything else looks pretty much identical. So we've got Killian in P1 in the Ferrari, we've got the V1 driver in the Porsche in P2, and myself in P3 in the McLaren. And in P4 we've got the Z4 that we were chasing down before in the previous race right behind us, and we know our pace was pretty similar because we started to stay around about the same pace as him in the previous race that we did. So yeah, let's see what we can do as we work our way through the first sector, trying to make not as many mistakes this time, trying to make sure we don't lose the rear through there. Obviously we still are in that slipstream ever so briefly to the Porsche in front of us, but we're not in it that much that it's going to affect the way the car handles too much. Although we do go a little bit wide there and just get a little bit out of shape. Luckily, keep it on track, don't go onto the grass, and didn't get any dirty tyres, so it should be okay for the hairpin. Now as we approach the hairpin, down to first gear, and now we're going to go up to second gear for a better exit and just see what we do on the straight. You see the Z4, watch how fast this Z4 is in the mirror on the straights, and this is what I'm talking about. This Z4 is a very strong car on the straight line speed. You can see gaining, and he's actually going to bump draft us instead of fighting, because I think he wants to hold on to that position before the left-hand corner here, the long spoon corner. So now onto the straight, we're going to see if we can try and get a good exit. The McLaren was actually quite strong on this corner in terms of getting on the power, and you can see we give ourselves a little bit of a lead over that Z4. Now we're going to have the Z4 coming back at us on the straight though. Just look at the speed difference down the straight, and this is where I think the BOP needs a little bit of work. I think what they need to do is get the power cars a little bit slower on the straight but a little bit faster on the corners, and they should be in a bit better place. And also some of the handling cars that are like the RCZ just need to be made a little bit slower in the corners, but keeping the pace they've got on the straights, and then the BOP should be a bit better. At the moment it's quite a big difference on straight line speed. I think when we get to tracks like Monza, the handling cars will have zero chance at all, but then on tracks like Suzuka, the handling cars are dominant. As you can see there in the lead there, Killian in the Ferrari, starting to pull away a bit, but Killian is one of the fastest drivers in the game, and we make a huge mistake. Luckily, managed to save that, a massive drift into turn 1, I thought we were going to be a goner there and spinning off, but we managed to save it and hold the car on the track and hold on to P4, which is going to be important because, like I say, this lobby's still quite high ranked. It's top split. And yeah, a bit annoyed at myself for that little mistake there, because we were on, I think we could have held on to a podium position in this if we'd have just got our rhythm going and got used to the car. So yeah, we're going to skip ahead now to lap 3. And you can see as we come into this left-hand corner, you can see the gap to P3. It's a little bit increased, but yeah, I think we were starting to pick up a bit of pace now. You can see we're going blue, and then as we come through here, we cut that corner ever so slightly. Like on GT Sport, you get away with that, but on GT7, it's a penalty, and it's fair play. We cut the corner a bit, and we're going to have to take that penalty, and that's going to probably lose us a position. So we're going to try and break the slipstream to Bray, and we tried to push as much as we could. And you can see we're actually caught up to the Z4 a bit on this lap. We did a pretty good lap. However, penalty taken, and Bray in the Viper is just going to go straight past us and knock us down to P5, which is a bit frustrating because I think we had the pace for a podium there. But a few mistakes, but it's to be expected. We didn't really warm up. We jumped on, had a bit of fun, and got a P5 in the end. You can see onto the final corner. All we've got to do now is go over the line, and I think this ended up with 349 points because obviously it's top split lobby, high ranked drivers, and yeah, not the best race, but the penalty cost us a P4 and one mistake cost us a P3. So we're going to skip to the final manufacturers test season race at Laguna Seca. This time we're in the Group 4 McLaren, and yeah, it's at Laguna Seca, a track that I do like. We're in qualifying session, and we're about to go for our main lap. You can see this is our qualifying lap that's going to determine where we start. So far we haven't set a particularly great lap. We've done a 28.6. We knew we could go faster than that by a few tenths, and on this lap we're going to try and push a little bit harder. We've got a banker lap in there that's starting in the top 4 so far. Well, we're in P3 so far, so we just got to try and drive a little bit more aggressive on this one, use a bit more of the track, and see if we can get a little bit of a better lap in. So through this right hand corner, chucking it in, get the right hand side to skim the curb on the right hand side. Always a good idea to carry that speed through there, helps you all the way up here. Now the car in front, I was worried he was going to come right across the racing line, but he saw us, stayed to the left and gave us a space, so thank you to that driver. And now working our way up the hill into this very tricky left hand corner. Now the McLaren actually handled this really nice. You could just chuck the car in, didn't really act funny, kept grip all the way through there as another car's run wide. They're obviously pushing a little bit too hard. And now we're working our way into the corkscrew, which again, once we got the hang of it in the McLaren, drove really well. Just got it onto the apex, get on the power nice and early, upshift early. Remember with the McLaren in Group 4, I think you shift around 70 to 80%, 70 to 75%, something like that to get the maximum power out of this car. But as you can see, pretty strong lap so far. Not perfect, could have been a little bit faster, but with the limited, again, we didn't really bother putting any time trial practice in or anything because the lobby practice died. We tried to do it in stream. The lobby practice was dying, so we just did a little bit of time trial practice. Get a little bit of slipstream off him, maybe gain us half a tenth there, and over the line for a 1 minute 28.378, which again, could have been definitely faster. I think that car could have got into the 27s, but we're going to start from P3. Again, we've got some fast drivers in. We've got the four-wheel drive cars, which we can't really compete against in qualifying, the Mazda and stuff in front of us, but we put the McLaren into P3, which I think is a good result for that car. We've got On-Phase or Medi in P4 there, and Killian there in P5. So this is going to be hard. We've got two of the fastest drivers from Gran Turismo Sport right behind us. Hopefully we can just drive well and try and defend from them and have some good pace ourselves. So starting the race, P3, let's see what we can do. The first few laps are going to be very difficult because the two cars in front, the Evo and the Mazda, are a lot stronger than the McLaren in terms of pace when the tyres are good. Now the interesting thing with this race was the tyre wear wasn't massively high. However, it was 7 laps, which is not a very long race, but it was a little bit longer than the previous manufacturer races. And what we didn't know was how them four-wheel drive cars are going to cope with tyres with a slightly extra few laps. Now they are OP. The four-wheel drive cars are definitely the strongest cars, but I think if we get to some combinations with higher tyre wear and maybe softer compounds, once them cars have had a little bit of a BOP, I think they're not going to be quite as strong in the race conditions. It's going to be an interesting one. At the moment, the BOP is a little bit erratic. It's very strange. Like, you know, you've got time trial cars that are dominant in the race. They're not as dominant, but they're still strong, obviously. So, yeah, at this stage, we're just going to try and stay as close as possible to the two cars in front of us, as this is the early 3 laps, 4 laps, something like that. They're going to be, obviously, very, very strong. So it's just about staying as close as we can and trying not to get overtaken by the cars behind us. We can see we've got quite a nice gap though on the replay. You can see we're in the middle of the two groups here. We've got the P1-2 battle, myself in the middle, and then there's a battle for P4 and 5 with Killian and Mehdi there. And then there's quite a big gap to P6. So it does look like we've managed to get away from a lot of other cars. And this, I think, probably was like this because it was one of them weird lobbies. The first slot we tried to go into on stream, we got disconnected from as we went into the race, and it was actually going to be a top split race with quite a few fast drivers. However, when you get disconnected, we believe it affects your SR, which we believe then puts you into a different lobby, because I think Killian might have got disconnected in that previous attempt as well as Mehdi. So Mehdi and Killian got disconnected, myself got disconnected, and then we end up in a kind of a strange lobby. It's still not bad points. It's like a split 1.5 lobby or something like that. Split, you know, the points are still not terrible. I think they were like 350 for the win or something like that. But it's just a bit annoying that, you know, there was another lobby as well that was higher ranked at the same time. But you can see we're doing okay. We've got fast drivers behind us. Killian has managed to overtake Mehdi at this point, and he's now going to be hunting us down. He's around 2 seconds behind us. However, McLaren felt pretty good here, and what I did notice was the Ferrari was definitely a little bit stronger through the corners, but then on the straights and on acceleration, the McLaren was a little bit stronger. It had a little bit more traction off the corner. You can see that we actually managed to pull away a little bit on the straights compared to the Ferrari, but then through some of the corners, the Ferrari would get it back, and it was all just, I think the slower corners, McLaren with the traction, a little bit stronger, especially on the traction zones. But then on the faster corners, the Ferrari possibly a little bit stronger than the McLaren. Also, Killian is a better driver than me, so he's probably going through some of the corners a little bit faster because he's just faster at the game. But you can see at this stage, we're 1.7 seconds and 2 seconds behind the leaders. However, jumping on a few laps, and we can see that the leaders are about to battle, and we are starting to catch them up at this stage. And this is what I'm talking about with regards to the four-wheel drive cars. You can see as the Mazda gets itself into the lead, but they are dropping off on pace, and you can see that Killian is very, very close to us now, just 1.2 seconds behind. So we're going to possibly be put under pressure, so we're going to have to try and see if we can catch the leaders up, or try and catch up P2 and get ourselves ahead of at least one car. But yeah, imagine if these races were a little bit longer with slightly higher ratios, maybe different tyres on. I do think the race pace would even out slightly, but then we'd have to wait and see. I still think the Mazda needs a BOP. I still think the Evo needs a BOP, and Subaru and the BMW. I think they're very, very strong cars. I think the Ferrari and McLaren, I think the McLaren's probably a little bit stronger than the Ferrari because, or pretty, I don't know, pretty close probably, because Killian is gaining on us at a few tenths a lap, and this is not a bad track for myself, but I don't know how much practice either. I know I put little practice in, so yeah, I know Killian's a better driver than me, so he should probably be gaining at least 2 or 3 tenths no matter what car. So yeah, it's hard to really know, but at this stage we're going to come through the final sector, and we're getting very, very close to P2. You can see only 2 and a bit laps to go. We're on a personal best at the moment. We're going to start getting a little bit held up now. We're getting very, very close to that dirty air, so it will slow us down in some of the corners. It will help us on the straights, as you're going to see as we come out of the final corner. We're going to get a little bit of slipstream help from the Evo in front of us. It's going to pull us away on the straight to Killian. You can see out of that corner, again, that Ferrari not quite as good as the McLaren on the initial acceleration with the traction. And then down the straight, you can just see how fast them Evos and the INTENS are. They're just so fast in a straight line, and I think that's where the problem is. It's down to power, so maybe even just taking 1% power off them to see how they go with that for a BOP might be a good idea, because they are going to fade in race conditions. Now into the penultimate lap, we've got 2 laps to go. Again, we're doing quite well here. We're catching up to P1 as well as P2, so P2 is hanging on to the leader in the Mazda, and we're starting to catch them up. So it does look like the MR cars are coming back at the 4-wheel drive cars at this stage of the race. You can see that Killian behind us. Mehdi has dropped off. I'm not sure if he's made a mistake there. You can see that he's dropped off in P7. V1 Mehdi there has faded a little bit, so maybe had an issue, a penalty or a spin or something. But we're getting very close to the Evo. We're going to have a little look up the right hand side. Going to kind of go for a fake move, brake nice and early. He kind of brakes really late and has to handbrake it here. He actually runs all the way off the track and gets dirty tyres there. Now, I expected him to get a penalty for that, but he doesn't actually get a penalty. Now, we've got a massive run on him here because we've got fresh, better tyres. He's ran wide, he's got dirty tyres, we've got the inside line, go for a move on the inside, and I think what we do there is quite a nice little overtake. I think we worked it, we pulled it off, and we made a good move. Now, he wasn't too happy. I think he said it was a questionable move, I don't think he said it was a terrible move, but it was a questionable move he put in the chat. So let's have a little watch of it now. So as we come into the braking zone, we're pretty much side by side into the apex. Now, we don't run wide. We hold it onto the apex, and he still turns in. And you can see at this point here, I think we've got a less amount of track compared to him. And there's a bit of contact there, even though there's not contact there. So again, hit detection on GT7 doesn't seem that great. Again, as we come out the exit of the corner, you can see he turns in. We've pretty much got the whole car ahead at this point here. At this point here, we're almost a whole car length ahead. And I think that is a reasonably fair overtake. Now, have a little look at the free camera, and you can see there's contact at this point here, but you can see there's a gap still between the cars. Again, this is the hit detection on GT7. It was an issue on GT Sport, but hopefully they can get it a little bit better. But we'll watch it again from full speed from my view on the chase camera, and you can make your mind up. I think it was a fair move. He had dirty tyres, he'd been off the track, we had the run on him on the inside, we go down the inside, we brake, we hold the inside to the apex. It was a bit aggressive maybe, but I think it was fair. I would do that move again. Maybe some people wouldn't, but at the end of the day, it's not going to change anything, because I would have done it again, and I'll do that move every time. And we managed to take ourselves into P2, and now we're going to try and see if we can hunt down the Mazda in front of us. Now, the Mazda is going to be very hard to catch. You can see we're on a pretty good lap through the first sector, driving it quite well, and we actually gain him. We actually go through personal best on that first sector, because we've got no dirty air this time. That's where you can gain a little bit of time. We've got Killian behind us, also pushing around 1 second behind us, and actually gaining a little bit on us through there, through the corkscrew. Managed to push really aggressively through there, but he's not really going to be able to catch us up. We've got a 3 second gap, three quarters of a second gap to Killian in P3, and we're not going to probably catch up to P1. We did catch him up by 3 or 4 attempts though, and that shows you that as the tyres are fading, that Mazda's starting to struggle, whereas the McLaren just seems to be staying consistent, and if not, better at this stage. So over the line, pretty decent lap, and you can see there a P2, so pretty happy with the P2 overall. I think that was around 330 points we ended up coming away from that race with. So not a bad season one for ourselves. Overall, a P2 in that race was quite unexpected, because I went in with no practice, so pretty happy with that. And we finished P14 in Europe in the manufacturers, which again, pretty happy with the job we've done there. And P1 for McLaren, we managed to take the P1 for the McLaren, so yeah, you can't ask for more than that. Pretty enjoyable season, bit short the races. Next season is going to be much more entertaining, so make sure you check out these races, because next season are longer races, half-an-hour races and stuff like that. It's going to be a good one. I'll see you all then. Bye everyone.